Good afternoon, everyone. If we could find our seats, we'll get our town hall started in the brand new year. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It is good to be here. This evening, or this afternoon, I should say, all things being equal, we have on our agenda, and I guess I need to hit the magic button to make our agenda show up. There we go. So we have at least 3 items to talk about today. And before we get started, for those of you who are new and it's a new year, my name is Chet Pillsbury. I am the CEO, and it's my honor to be here. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. This is the first town hall of this year, and you may have noticed that we've changed the schedule. And it is the definitive reason for that is that we want the town halls to begin to start coming before the board meetings. And the ultimate goal, even though this time we're just getting off the ground, is to have the agendas for the board meetings so that if there are questions about those things, they could be addressed here in the town hall and give everybody the appropriate time and space to discuss those things. The board would be available to discuss those things as well. And then we can actually run our board meetings as pure business meetings and allow you to have already voiced your opinion before we got there. Okay, first of all, this evening we're going to have Mr. Orr, our new board president, John Orr. He's going to open up our meeting with some comments, and I'd like you all to welcome him. We're happy he's with us this year.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. My colleagues have bestowed upon me the ceremonial role of president this year of the board. So initially I had to go back and look at the bylaws to figure out what that entails. And basically what it says is, in addition to serving as the chairman of the board of directors, the president develops all agendas for the meetings, also serves as the ceremonial head for all association meetings and events, signs all minutes, expense reports, contracts, other documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, it sounds like I just got a lot more administrative work, but they did tell me it comes with double the pay, so there's that. But that's okay, we don't do this for money, we do it for the fun. And all the appreciation of our neighbors, especially those on next door. So as the ceremonial head of this association meeting, I just wanted to say a few things. Chet had mentioned one of the changes that the board has decided over the last couple of months, and we've been talking a lot about what needs to change going forward. One was the timing of the town hall. I talked to Chet probably the beginning of November about making this change because I, too, like many of you, were not pleased with the process of opening up for discussion topics moments before the board was set to vote on them. That's just not the right process. So now we'll have time to talk about it, get feedback. We're going to do our best to identify board topics and board votes further in advance. So sometimes we'll have something in the town hall that's not going to be on the agenda for 2 or 3 months out. So that's the purpose of this. Let's see. So we will. So basically, I guess the reason, one of the other reasons for doing this was we have talked, ever since I've been on the board, I don't know how much before that, about getting board meetings back to what they were intended to be. By definition, a board meeting is a formal business meeting to conduct the business of the corporation. The main purpose of these meetings are to provide governance, strategic direction, perform financial oversight and accountability, as well as perform the legal duties of the board. In recent years, the board meetings have started to look a lot more like town halls than board meetings. So by allowing public input at the town halls, we are hoping to return our board meetings back to their intended purpose. Property owners are always welcome to attend, although we're going to limit public comment at board meetings to published agenda items only. It's not going to just be a free-for-all. That's what this is for. This is a free-for-all, for the lack of a better word, to say whatever's on your mind. On another topic, when Chet was hired 2 years ago plus, the board gave him the task of changing the culture in the POA. And anyone that's been part of trying to change culture in an organization knows it's not easy. And I can tell you from personal experience, it takes 3 years to change a culture in any meaningful way. So while we've started this process, we've made some nice progress. We still have work to be done. But I did want to point out a couple of things that personally I've witnessed that are big improvements. Across the board, we've got much better business and financial acumen among all the managers in the POA. 3 years ago, there are directors that could not tell you anything about their P&L. They didn't look at it. They didn't know anything about it. That doesn't happen today. They know about their P&L. They're very involved in budgeting. There's much more accountability, improved customer service. And for the first time this year, every department created a full business plan before budgeting. That included a full SWOT analysis, strategic plan, and complete business plan that's been posted online for everybody to look at. It involved a lot of work, a lot of training, but by the end, we've got some pretty good plans especially considering it's the first time doing this for most of these managers and directors. And we will obviously continue to build upon those this year and get even better. Another highlight is that for the first time, maybe ever, I don't know, I haven't been here forever, but our budget for 2025, total expenses, right? Everything the POA spends across the board is flat to 2024. That's and then on top of that, we've already identified $500,000 of continuous improvement savings to be found that we will report on throughout the year. So 26 will be another year of significant change at the POA as we try to take this organization to a new level. We're not a small rural homeowners association anymore. We're a $44 million corporation, which is right in the heart of a mid-sized corporation in the United States. So we're going to try to move the entire operation to acting like a mid-sized corporation, and some of the things that I'm talking about will help do that. Lastly, I wanted to say a word or two about communication. Every board candidate, at least since I've been in the village, has campaigned on improving communication. Right? I did it. Every candidate this year said they're going to improve communication. And like I said, going back to 2020, everybody has said that. Yet many in the village point to communication as one of our greatest challenges, despite the fact that we communicate more now than we ever have, and significantly more than we did just 2 or 3 years ago. But we admit we have to do better. Having these town halls moved up the way they are, just having them in general, just started, I don't even know if it's been 2 years, but just having them is an improvement, but having them, the timing change should improve that. Having better visibility further out to board topics will help. And just so everybody knows that before a topic or a vote gets on the agenda for a board meeting, Board members and advisory committee members and POA staff have probably spent 40, 50 plus hours in fact-finding meetings, discussions, research, analysis, and debate on the topic. So this work always starts at the advisory committee level, sometimes many, many months before it ever gets to the board level. So knowing that, I'd like to request that our newly formed IT Advisory Committee develop a proposal to record initially the PSAC and the FAC meetings, the advisory committee meetings. Those are the most impactful, advisory committee meetings. So, let's start out and see if we can't figure out a process to record those and post them internally somehow. I'm not sure. We don't want to post those kind of meetings to YouTube, but have them available for property owners to view at their leisure, so they can see what's coming down the pipe as far as some of these discussions and initiatives. And I'd also want to see about moving this recording to property owner viewing only, as opposed to, again, posting it to YouTube. But so you say, but why not just keep posting it to TVN YouTube channel? I think we need to be careful about some of the stuff we post out there. Internal discussions about what we may or may not do, probably doesn't need to get broadcast to the world. My feeling is, we'll discuss this in our next board meeting, but keep these things internal to the association. Well, I think it's already been talked about a couple of times, but I initiated a feedback session with local realtors in December. We gathered about 20 of the most active realtors in the village. And many of them actually live in the village. We had two main topics we wanted feedback on. First was the buy-in fee, which is the main topic of today. And the second was, what are they hearing from prospective buyers as to why they don't purchase a home in the village? So they show a lot of people houses in the village, and they go back, and then at some point they decide to either buy a house or buy somewhere else. So what are they hearing? So basically, it came down to a couple of different major areas. One had to do with amenities. Some of these folks just said, some of your amenities are looking a little dated. But more specifically, when you dig down into that comment, it really seemed a lot of them was the lack of a resort-style pool and clubhouse, like what you would find at newer master plan communities. So that one, not much we can do about it this time, but it's just input, I guess. But the other main reason communicated was that after doing their due diligence on the community via social media, published board meetings, town halls, and the like on YouTube, they concluded that there were a lot of unhappy people in the community, and that they did not want to live in that type of community. Now, that's not a reason for everybody not to buy in here, but the fact that it was echoed by multiple realtors as what they have heard gave us a pause. So I pass this along as food for thought when you're posting online for the world to see, and as well as prospective buyers to see. So that's all I got. I just want to welcome our two new board members. We look forward to a very productive year. We've got a lot to do. As returning board members can attest, the level of activity just in the few short weeks since I was elected, if you will, to this position, the level of activity has bumped up a notch or two. And I apologize in advance to my colleagues and their spouses for the time I'll be asking of them this year, but again, we have a lot to do. So I will thank you in advance for your support. I'll turn it back over.
All righty. Let's see. What is next on our... Okay, that wasn't supposed to be in there, but hey, okay. So I'd like to introduce next my new project manager, Scott McCray. Many of you have met him. He is new to my staff, and he's also fairly new to the community. He's going to give us some updates on the Tanasi build and how it's going and why it's going the way it is. And then he is going to talk about what we've done so far in working toward resolving, both discovering and resolving the I&I issues that have been part of the community for a very long time. All right, I'd like you to welcome Scott McCray.
Just wanted to get my notes up. All right. There we go. Thank you, Chet. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today and taking your time, allowing me the time to update you on the Tanasi Clubhouse rebuild and a little bit about the TAP projects. I know we're all interested in that. I've been here, Chet says relatively new. I've been here 2 years in the community, rented for a year, and then built a house over in Tomatley Shores. So I've been in here 2 years and pretty much familiar with a lot of these issues. My wife and I bought our lot 3 months before the Tanasi Clubhouse burned down. So we were really happy to see that on the news when we saw that. Basically, as I said in the December board meeting, we're rebuilding the clubhouse in phases. And we're basically, right now, we're in phase 0. Some of you may ask, why phase 0? Well, if you're an IT person, you know you always start a list with phase 0. But if you're not an IT person, all of the pre-planning that was done over the past couple of years had developed the rebuild in 3 phases. So we had phase 1, 2, and 3 already going, already designed. And then we realized in order to minimize activities and disruption at the golf course, we had to relocate the cart path. Because otherwise we had the golfers running across the construction site, and we felt it was probably not best to drop an I-beam on top of one of the golf carts. So hence phase 0, and that phase 0 is relocating the golf cart path from going across the existing parking lot and all to down behind the buildings, through the existing cart barn, and then in behind the pro shop and all. So we've been working on that. And while there have been some comments that it doesn't look like much has happened since we had our groundbreaking on December 2nd and started construction, or shall I say demolition, on December 9th, we've made a considerable amount of progress as where we went. And I just wanted to put this up here. We did move the clubhouse forward about 10 feet from where it was originally standing. So you notice, for those of you that remember or saw the original rendering, where we had a nice big retaining wall, we've now eliminated that retaining wall and saved considerable amount of money on that. So we've done tree removal around behind the 9th hole. So all those nice big cedar trees that were there, creating all kinds of problems on the parking lot and for the golf course, trying to keep the green clean, those have been removed. We also removed, I've seen some comments, why did we remove those oak trees right at the entrance? We're expanding and widening that entrance to make it a lot easier to get in and out of. So that's why we removed the trees on the south side. And also, we've needed to remove a bunch of soil in order to do the regrading and all. We've done that. and we've been using that to build up the cart path. We've removed the light poles from the parking lot and all the ground lighting around the building. And as I was coming over here from the job site, the marble people were in the process of removing that big, beautiful Tanasi monument, and we will be reusing that at the end, and we've come up with some nice ways to improve the looks of that as well. So that will go back into the front there. We did not plan on doing a lot of construction during the holidays. Obviously, with Christmas and New Year's both falling in the middle of the week, those 2 weeks we didn't plan on a lot. So if you haven't seen a lot being done, that's because we didn't plan to do a lot during the first month. A couple of key things that we did do. When we moved the cart path from in front of the 9th green to behind it, we decided to also lower the elevation there. So in doing that, there's a lot more dirt that has to be moved. So we did approve a $9,830 change order to the contract. We have already saved that with some value engineering, so we will not be seeing an increase in the overall price. So we have kept the guaranteed maximum price with that. Right before the holidays, on December 20th, we had a meeting with the contractor and approved $1 million worth of purchase for phase 1, primarily the structural steel. That way they were able to lock in last year's pricing and get that all on order so we can stay on schedule. We had a meeting yesterday with the contractor and approved most of the phase 2 and phase 3 items so that they're able to get all of their subcontractors in place. And on some of the big contractors, they're actually going to have them bond their work so that work, the larger pieces, the larger subcontracts, are guaranteed. They cannot go up from what the prices were. So again, we feel very, very comfortable that the contractor is on board and all. And this morning, we went ahead and implemented our plan for getting third-party testing in site, and that's to basically look at things like soil compaction, our concrete quality, and all of that. So that's for our protection. So again, the project remains on schedule and on budget. Just wanted to show you a few things. One of the key things, we did do some surveying out there. I know there's a lot of people that walk on the golf course, maybe you walk around there or you go up and you want to see what's going on. Right now it's safe to walk on site, but please stay over where the building's going to be. If you go in there, the pink stakes show where the building's going to be. Those are the corner stakes. For those of you that are really interested, you can look on those, and there's little codes that says F8.6. That means add 8.6 feet of soils to that location in order to get it up to where it needs to finally be and all. But you'll see where the building is going to be. Here's just a couple of photos of where the golf course, the cart path in behind the old practice green, and what they've had to do. And it seems like, oh, there's not very much work being done. They've added about 4 feet of elevation back there. They had to do that in 12-inch lifts and then pack it down and compact it with a sheep's foot and then a smooth roller. And so you take 12 foot of soil, you compact it down to 6, you add 12 inches, you add another, compact it down to 6, and you keep going like that. And eventually we've got the 4 feet elevation that we needed for that. Another photo of that. And then here's looking across the lake. So you can see, well, you can't see very well on that one. Too bad you can't see my screen. But they've added about 3 or 4 feet of soil in there and elevation in order to get that cart path nice and level and all. So we'll be requiring all the golfers when they go around here, they're going to have to stop by T-Bart and get a life jacket before they drive on the cart in case they go into the lake. All right, let me just give you a quick little update on where we are on the tap. And before I go in, and then I'll take questions on both the Tanasi and the tap after this. But before I go into the RDI&I updates and a little bit about tap, just want to talk to you a little bit about how we got here and what we're doing and with the tap projects and all. But basically, Jacobs Engineering has been working with us at the village, looking at our water and sewer issues for about 5 years. They identified both capacity and flow issues in both systems and all. And last year, early in 2024, the board went ahead and approved Jacobs to complete the design on our the key projects for both our water and our wastewater issues. Basically, the key things there were lack of low pressure and also overflows and or problems in our sewer system with the main village pump station, some of the other pump stations and all. And also they noticed some of the other key ones, Toqua, Mialacqua, Tanasi Shores, and Tanasi Coves. Those particular pump stations also are going to need some upgrades, and they'll be working on those as well. And basically the main village wastewater system has a number of problems throughout the system. Obviously, the big issue that came up that I think everybody was really concerned with was the wastewater tank and where it was located and all, that big 750,000 gallon wastewater tank. So at the December board meeting, the board of directors said, let's take a pause on that. Let's look for other options and see what we can do. And they've asked Jacobs to go back and reassess all of their plans. So they went back and they're in the process of doing that. I do expect a report from them within the next week or 10 days. So they, like everybody else, were on holiday over the Christmas holidays, so their technical team was off a little bit, but they're back at that and they're working for us. They're going to look at all of their different recommendations, a number of the alternatives, and also give us some cost estimates for some other proposals that were provided. One thing that did come out of all of that was, and all of their recommendations have said, we should do something, if possible, about our rain-driven infiltration and intrusion. So the RDI&I is the thing, or I&I is what we've heard. So we are looking at different activities to do that. At the last board meeting, Matt Benoit from our public works director mentioned that his team has already been out and installed about 45 5-inch extensions on tanks that were underwater. So he's already done that. But we're looking at how do we go about and find what tanks are really a problem. As an engineer, I have to have data that says, if we're putting these extensions on, does that solve the problem? If not, what else can we do? So we have to get, and we also have to know, we can't look at 5,000 tanks in any reasonable amount of time and just go around and start installing extensions. So what we're doing is, let me just give you a little, RDI&I has to occur at your house, at the sewer tanks at your house. We have a pressurized system, okay? So the source, those potential sources could be your tank lids if there's water coming in. It could be underground. It could be deteriorated gaskets or other problems on your main waste tank, main waste line coming in. It could be on the waste line going out. Could be on the electrical conduit connection. There could be problems with the tank itself. So we have to know whatever solution we put in actually solves the problem. So what I've done working with Matt's team is we've developed a pilot study. So what we're going to do is we've bought some flow meters. We're looking for places around the community to install those flow meters so that we can monitor the wastewater flow in certain areas during normal times and during wet times to see whatever solutions we have attempted. One is this a source of a problem to begin with? And two, if it is, and we install a remedy, did that remedy solve the problem? Or was what we thought was the right solution, was that not the right solution? Let's keep looking for the real problem. If we don't find the right solutions, we'll never solve the problem. So that's pretty much where we are right now on the RDI&I. It gets kind of complicated in the manner in that what are some of the other issues? One, we may need more money. Right now we're working with a limited budget, but we are in the early stages, so we want to make sure that we could go back to the board and say, this is what we think it's going to take to really solve the problem. So the board may have to give us a little bit more money, and we'll have to come up with a plan on that. We've already implemented some of the ideas there, but homeowners, if we come to you and say, we think your tank is a likely source of I&I, may we put a flow meter on your tank? We would like you to say yes. You're under no obligation right now to say yes, but we would like to do that. Conversely, we may come to you and say, we think your tank is really in a good location and is not likely to be a source. May we verify that? Because that gives our team the opportunity and the information we're going to need. It allows us to develop the information we're going to need to say, yes, we can visually take a look at it and likely come up with the most likely candidates or the least likely candidates, the most likely sources of RDI&I or the least likely sources. So we're going to be coming to you for that. And additionally, we might ask you, let's say we find that your landscaping surrounds your tank and is bringing water to it, or your drainage, we might ask you, are you willing to change your landscaping? Are you willing to regrade your lots? Or if we find that the solution was not something simple like leakage at the tanks, can we dig around your tank to find whether or not there's leaks someplace else? Again, you're under no obligation to say yes. We would like you to say yes. But again, those are some of the complicating factors that I'm trying to work out with Chet, with Matt, and with the board. Here's just a few installations that Matt found that were kind of, oh, where's the tank? The third one or the second one from the right, Matt and I both found very, very interesting. The finger there is pointing to the tank. It's underneath the bridge. So, so how do we solve the RDI&I at those particular locations? So again, that's why I just say there's some interesting challenges as we go through this. And then in closing comments, I just want to mention a couple of things. We've temporarily put the wastewater tank on hold. Our goal is to do anything and everything possible to say we don't need it. If we don't need it, what do we do to make it look pretty, or other things? If we do need it, what do we do to make it look pretty and all of that? But right now we've kind of tasked Jacobs, look at every option that they can there and all. I have identified, if we really get to the point where we don't like what Jacobs says and the board says go get another engineering firm to look at this, I have identified another engineering firm that is willing to do that. They said it would take them about 30 days to do it, and they proposed a reasonable cost to do that. Again, we're already working on the RDI&I, and we're coming up with a pretty good plan on that. One of the things we're doing to address future I&I on all of our new builds, Matt and his team have identified a new type of tank. It's called an E1 tank. It's Environment One is the company that makes them. That's why they're E1 tanks. And that's what's being installed on all the new builds. So we think that this will significantly reduce the possibility of future RDI&I. And when we figure that there's another 1,500 to 1,800 homes that can be built in the village, that's 20% of new construction, over 20% total that we can stop, hopefully not add to our I&I issues at all. And then the ACC is looking at different ways to make sure that the tanks that are being installed are installed correctly, and they're also looking at, can they go back when it's finally done and your landscaping is in on a new house, make sure that the landscaping doesn't direct water toward those tanks. Again, we're doing everything we possibly can today to prevent future RDI&I at the new installs, which will help us. And then the last closing comment I want to make is that all of the TAP projects, all of the solutions, one of the objectives that Jacobs has looked at in the projects that they've proposed is that they've tried to make the solution a Tellico Village solution to minimize the necessity to go to third parties to say, if you will do this for us, you could help us out. Because then we're relying on other people getting permits, spending money, charging us for it, or whatever. So we've tried to come up with our solution, the solution internally, so that we have control of that solution. So that's how we got to where we are. That's where we currently stand. Is it okay if I take questions? Or do you want to wait? Wait till the end? Okay, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I thought we'd wait to the end. That way we can get everybody's questions in at once instead of up and down and up and down. Okay, let's see. Get through that, get through that. Am I going backwards? Sorry. There we are. Okay, we're going to go through some explanations and some background. Hopefully, the background will improve everyone's understanding and improve why we even have this discussion at all. And we'll start with this next screen. Come on. Now, I do want to say that we're trying to improve these slides, and one of the things we've discovered is that it is that screen that is the problem, not our how we design our slides themselves. And so the church is looking at coming up with some different kinds of screens there in the future. But I apologize that we've tried several different colors and different backgrounds trying to make this more readable. So this is kind of the best we've come up with thus far, and it's still not perfect by any means. Can you see it? Cool. Okay, we'll go with bigger font too if we can. Okay, so the reserve funding fee is a proactive measure designed to ensure the long-term financial resilience of our community. This fee will be deposited in the reserve fund and will not be used to support daily operations. As an outline on the slide, we can anticipate a significant decline in revenue from our AC permits for new homes, bills, and the installation of utility tanks as we are nearing build-out. Initially, the reserve funding fee will serve as a supplement revenue source, but over time, it will become primary to replace the declining stream, helping to bridge the gap and secure funds for the community in the future's needs, such as maintaining infrastructure and capital. And you'll note here, let's see, make sure I don't get ahead of myself, but you'll note that, let's see if it's going to move for me. There we go. That one you probably, well, that's better than it usually is. The reserve funding fee addresses these revenue from new constructions and activities. And I probably say this later on, so if I say it twice, please forgive me. But one of the concerns in this diagram, you'll see how we progress over the next few years and we get lower and lower in income. And this income, this slide is all-encompassing, meaning it includes all the funds we receive from ACC that apply to new bills, not just the installation of the tanks. If you remember back in the budget, when we presented the budget, part of that, the reserve study, it had a comment in the bottom, had a little number and a comment at the bottom that said that we would be losing over that period of time $1 million plus. Well, that was only addressing the tanks. This is addressing and presenting all of the revenue and all of the loss over this period of time from all ACC funds as it applies to new homes. I'm assuming you're aware, ACC does other things besides just new homes. There are miscellaneous improvements, and people do things to their homes all along that have to be approved and permitted. It is essential to highlight that this fee is focused on replacing lost income rather than new funding for operations. The net income, and that's another key thing that I always tend to walk right by, we have much higher revenue, but the number we're talking about is the net profit that we put in the bank. That's what we're going to begin to lose. The fund is available for strategic investment in our community long-term needs. This fee is a vital step in safeguarding our financial position as we transition into a build-out community, ensuring that our reserves remain robust and available to support our capital projects and unforeseen challenges without burdening the future residents. On the screen, what you're looking at is cash flow. This is based on cash flow, and as I mentioned earlier, it is the entire revenue source from the ACC new homes. Okay. This is the harder question. Why seek legislative? And if I may stop and go back to the other one just a little bit, there's been questions about, I don't know, can I go reverse? I can. There's been questions about whether there's no real business plan or no financial reason for this. Business plan or not, there's the financial reason. We're going to lose money. And that is, I'd love to tell you this is something unique to us. It is not. Every community that goes through build out, especially one of this size, goes through the same process and has to adjust one way or the other because it changes. It's constantly evolving. And as we grow, we're going to hit that point where we sustain. And then we have a whole new set of evolving projects and problems we have to address because our income also becomes flat. So that's a piece of what I wanted to make sure everybody understood as we went forward. Now, why do we seek legislation? As I am sure all of you are aware of the process in our current declaration of our laws that says that we can't do this, we can't charge this fee. Legislation would allow us to be able to use this function to replace the loss of revenue we just reviewed. We are all concerned about going to legislation and to have and this benefit. After listening to your comments, I've decided to add back a few sentences into this legislation that addresses some of your concerns. In the first bill that we ever produced that caused a lot of consternation, there was a line in there that was very important, and I'm realizing more and more as I review what our options will be in the future, how important it is. But we're going to add back into legislation, into this bill, a line that says that the board must vote every year for this line to apply. Now, why does that matter? A couple things. Let me see if I'm getting ahead of myself. I am. Go back. So, if the board has to vote on it every year, we are then controlling that function every year. And let me give you two scenarios where that would be really important. Let's talk about the worst scenario first. The worst scenario is that our economy tanks to the point where people's homes and their value has dropped to the point where having a $5,000 additional bill on selling your home is a true burden, a real burden, one that makes it almost impossible for you to sell either way. Then that would be a time the board would want to turn it off. The second reason, which in my mind is a much better reason, we put this in place and everybody says, this is good. I'm seeing the benefit of this. I see why this is important and it's moving forward. Then the association could take the time and the expense to change their declaration. And at that point, every year the board votes not to use it, but rather use what they've put in the declaration. And therefore you're managing it from your own documents and the legislation sits out there idle. One other thing that I wanted to point out is it was brought up that somehow this legislation ties us to Fairfield Glade. It does not. It gives Fairfield Glade in that bill as an example, mostly because the legislators ask us to put an example in there. And Fairfield Glade, they perceive as a sister community to us, same number of people, sort of, same number of layout, or same style of layout. And so it's in there. Now, can Fairfield Glade use this particular legislation? They can, but it's not necessary because they already have that in place in their own documents. Again, same principle. What does it take to change the declaration? We just talked about that being a possibility. It takes 2/3 of the community, the total community, including both landowners and homeowners, to vote yes. And I need to say that again because there's this idea that if 2/3 of the community votes, that's all that's necessary. No, 2/3 of the community has to vote and vote yes for us to be able to do that change, which apparently is relatively difficult. And all I can give you is the examples that we have currently. I believe it was in 2008 or 2009 that was found that the declaration we have had 2 what I refer to as typos, Scribner errors, whichever way you want to put it. They just needed to fix the language. And to get that done, it took 2 years and between $60,000 and $70,000 to do. And at that time, we had less than half the population we currently have now. So that's a pretty big hurdle back then. And we bring that to today, y'all would have to be really, 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 one more time, really gung-ho to get that done. And you're not unique in that. Other communities throughout the South and out West have these same kind of restrictions and run into these same kind of problems all the time, and they have to adjust one way or the other. So the biggest problem it would be is if we did that today, we're looking at if we use the same example, we're looking at probably 3 to 4 years and $100,000 to $150,000 to get it done. Now, I want to follow up with that because there's a lot of you who have a different opinion on this, and I'm not going to even argue with you on it. If we opened up the door and, oh, by the way, I forgot one other key point. To vote, it must be a signature and notarized. It's not like voting for the board member where you click on a button and say, yes, I want to vote for him. But it would require a signature that is notarized. So let's say we opened up Chota and we said, come in and vote. And you did it in a week or 3 weeks. There's no guarantee that all of you will vote yes. In fact, there's a pretty high possibility that you won't. So, and that's the reality of it, right? So, as we move forward, the board has to make these decisions. And by the way, the change to this bill that I just mentioned will be online tonight, and it will be underlined so that you can review that yourselves as to keep that out in front of everyone. And the board will have to vote on that too as well. That is a change that has just been recently made, and they have not reviewed it, nor have they approved it. So in the overview, and I'm still stuck in one place here. In the fee overview, the biggest thing that we want to talk about is we're proposing a one-time flat fee. And as John mentioned earlier, we went to the real estate folks and said, what do you think about this? Do you think a flat fee or a percentage is better? And they felt that the flat fee was, of course, easier to manage, first of all, but it also reflected all the other POA bills that you have. If you buy a $200,000 home or a $2 million home, you still pay the same assessments. If you own that same house either way and you go to play golf, you pay the same amount. And so that's why it was determined that a fixed fee that applied to everyone was more equitable and reflected how the rest of the community was run. Okay. So there are some exclusions, and there was lots and lots of discussions. I got that up there, right? Okay. There was lots of discussion about this, and I need to say that the legislation actually added 2 of these in here. And, well, they added a whole list of them. If you go and look at this bill, you will notice in the first paragraph it says statute number 601AB, I think it is. Well, online we've attached that bill so you can see it. And what that bill reflects is a lot of these restrictions. And these are ones that the state imposes. And that is, if it's a transfer, for instance, a husband dies and it needs to be transferred to his wife, there is no charge for that. If you have a trust and you decide you want to put your home in a trust for your kids, there is no charge for that. If parents die and they will their house to their children, there is no charge for that. LLCs is another trust, or an LLC, the same principle. We also put in there that if you're an existing property owner and you've owned a home in here for 2 years, that you can do one of 2 things. You can either sell that home and move to another home here in Tellico Village and there would be no charge, or if you wanted to invest in Tellico Village, you could purchase another home without there being an additional charge. So we tried to make this as specific and as direct to the village and to benefit you rather than be an entire burden on you. Okay. We've talked a lot about the benefits to the community, but the biggest benefit to the community is preserving the long-term value of your homes, because we're able to do that. And I need to throw this in here, not because I want to debate reserves, but whether we have a reserve fund that's $1 million or $12 million, this will benefit you in terms of how we have to fund that reserve fund every time for years in perpetuity. It'll allow for long-term stability as well in that reserve fund. And you who have lived here for 15, 20 years or 2 years who've already paid into the reserves, this will allow those people who are coming into the community for the first time, who are benefiting from all the money that you've already invested in the community, to pay into the party too as well. So we've talked about this for 2 years. This will be the 3rd year, to be specific, that I've had this discussion with all of you, and there's been many changes and lots of thought gone into it. But had we had this in place last year, we would have brought in $1.8 million. It's an estimate because we don't know how many of the homes, and actually this is a reduction, because one of the questions as we evaluate this stuff is, well, wait a minute, Chet, a lot of people bought houses in the community who were just transferring, and that's true. So this number doesn't actually reflect the total sales of Tellico Village, but rather an estimate of if we took out all those homes that were just trades. I lived over here, now I've sold that house and bought another house over here. If we take out all those, that would have been the amount we'd have been able to put in reserves this year alone. Now, there's lots of concerns about affordability and whether, and I hear this a lot, whether if we put this out there that you as the buyer will end up paying this fee. I have been in this business for 20 years, and whether you choose to believe what I'm about to say or not is purely your decision. But in those 20 years, I have never once seen 2 things. A house not sell because there is a reserve fund fee, whatever term you want to use, transfer fee, buy-in fee, there's a ton of names people call them, but I've never seen a person lose a sale because of that. But more importantly, I've never seen a person pay that. And let me put it a different way. If you were about to sell your house and you wanted to sell it, would you go to that homeowner and say, hey, I'll pay the next 2 years of your assessments if you buy my house? It just doesn't work that way. And this is the exact same principle. It's no different. It's not like saying if you're going to join it's going to cost you $5,000 to join the golf club, are you going to pay that for me? That's a different argument. This is something that goes directly into the reserves, into the infrastructure of the community. It's not an amenity. And so it's always been approached that way. And like I said, you're welcome to call around to other communities. It's just not happening that way. And we asked the real estate people the same question. Do you feel this would inhibit somebody from buying a home? Because believe me, they have a vested interest in you selling your house as well. And they said the same. No, they don't see that that would have any effect at all. And they also agreed that it is good for our infrastructure, and it is good for people coming into the community to see how we are taking care of ourselves and funding ourselves. Whether you buy into it or not, having a reserve fund that is identified and documented and chased is a valid purchase tool. People ask that question all the time. Do you have reserves? How are you taking care of it? Now, we had mentioned Fairfield Glade, and we've mentioned some of these others. And I will tell you that, and you can see that we've got an amenity fee, we've got a WR realty fee, we have an outside purchase fee, we have a social membership. And again, when you start getting into social memberships or that sort of thing, I can hear your argument and believe you that that's one of those things that if I were buying in, I may want to play negotiation with you. But when we talk about the $50,000 at Wind River, that's a pure, unadulterated paying in. Now, in the scope of things, this is one thing I missed. In the scope of things, a POA's lifetime, when a builder starts building a community, and he has this built into his documents, which most do, we are very, very unique in not having this. But when they put that in their document, you're absolutely correct. That fund goes to the developer, and 90% of the time he's using that to build amenities. But once he turns that over, at that moment of time when he turns it over to the community, normally there is a reserve study done and a reserve account for the community opened at that point in time, and that's where that money goes without fail. That's how they assist the homeowners in funding those reserves that they need. All of these groups have these fees. So we're not anything new. Now, I could go across the nation and show you other things. I can tell you that Del Webb, as a very, very large home building community, has one in every single Del Webb there is on the planet. And they build that into their declaration right out of the gate. And absolutely, they use it in the beginning to build amenities. But once they turn it over and start their reserves, it goes into reserves, and that's where that money is functioned from. What am I doing here? There we go. The reserve funding fee is a forward-thinking, equitable solution designed to ensure long-term financial health, maintain property values, share infrastructure funding responsibilities with new residents. Without this fee, the burden of maintaining aging infrastructure would disproportionately fall on the current residents. As Tellico Village continues to evolve, this fee is essential for safeguarding our community's future. In closing, we need your support because this is, I don't know the way to say this. This is for you. Whether you buy into it, whether you think that I'm just being silly about the whole thing, I can't sell that any differently, but this is for you. This is in perpetuity. This will be in your future. Long after I'm gone, the current board is gone. This will be here to help you and to fund those reserves for you. If there's anything I can say to convince you that this is good for you, that's it. No one benefits from this except you. Because it's in the reserves, none of the staff will ever see a penny of it. So if there's that thought, this is another money grab, I don't see that money. It goes to you. It's spent on you. It's for you. And that's the whole part of what's going on. So I've preached enough. Let's open the floor. What questions do you have? Please come up to the mic if you have a question. You can get in line and state your name first, please. And Scott's up here. Come on up, Scott. He can answer any of your water authority type or water issues types things. Yes, sir.
Roger George, Tanasi neighborhood. You say the buy-in fee is not allowed in the covenants. What makes this any different than the $80 that we were just assessed with?
Two things.
That wasn't in the covenants either. So What's different about
Perfect question. Perfect question. And it's a really, really simple answer. The reserve funding fee goes into reserves and can be spent on any project, capital, otherwise, any of that. The $80 fee is an asset fee specifically put in place to fund the water and sewer projects. It cannot be spent on anything else. It's not commingled with the reserves. It has to be spent specifically on that. And that's the huge difference between those. The reserve funding fee, if we wanted to put in a new golf course, we could use it for that, God forbid. But if you really wanted to do that, you could. But the $80 fee is specifically for water and sewer. Now, whether we agree or when we agree on what all those projects will be, that's what that money will go toward, period. Nothing else. Yes, sir.
Chet, Mike Robbins. I have a request for you and any present board members. 2 nights ago, I was watching late at night this horrific situation unfold in California, and you could somewhat see that it was not getting any better. I think it would be wonderful, and I don't expect any dates or times from you today, but if you could look into this with your staff, our fire hydrants. I think our residents would appreciate knowing when they're going to be tested again, what the different color variations are, and after any tests are done, sometime maybe this spring, I don't know when, but if we could put this out on the POA information that comes out with other information, we'd have a handle on what's happening with all of this. So where's the nearest fire hydrant? Some of us have found it in our areas, some don't know. Some don't know what the different colors are, but are they working properly? Even if there's enough water, are they working properly? When are they going to be tested again? And what will the results be with our fire hydrants? I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, I can answer one of those questions. I think Scott has actually had a little foray into this issue. But if you are driving down your roads, all silliness aside, if you're driving down your roads and if you look in the center of the road, you're going to see a painted fire hydrant in the middle of the road. Right or left, there's going to be a fire hydrant there. And that's true throughout the community. So if you don't know where your fire hydrant is, look for the fire hydrant painted in the middle of the road, and you will see it on one side or the other. I think it's always on the right side if you're seeing it, but that may be just my small.
Can we get them tested maybe sometime in the
And we are being tested, but I was going to have Scott talk a little bit about it. He just recently did a test where we opened up one fire hydrant to see what the pressure was, and then while that was opened up another fire hydrant to see how that pressure changed. So I'll let him discuss that.
Thank you, Chet. Yeah, just about a month ago, we did a test over in Toqua at one of the higher elevations, and basically took a pressure reading, both static and dynamic, so basically with the fire hydrant closed. During this time, middle of the afternoon, so minimum water usage, the static pressure in the system at that time was 40 psi. We then opened 2 fire hydrants and it dropped to 20 psi, which is the bare minimum legal allowed by Tennessee law, and that was 1 month ago, so there's no irrigation, no excessive use. So one of the projects that Jacobs is working on is looking at the water pressure on our freshwater system, our potable water system, which is where the hydrants are connected. And I'm expecting a 60% design from them in the next 3 weeks.
Is there any?
So we'll have that. So we're moving forward with that. And there is the Public Works Department and the Fire Department routinely test the fire hydrants in the neighborhoods and have reports on that. So the fire chief has those.
That's wonderful. As that information gets back to you, can you guys send that out to all of us?
We can certainly publish it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Donna Blaine. I live in Malacqua. I heard today a lot of justification of needing all the money and so forth, but what I haven't heard is what are you doing to kind of cut costs also?
Sure.
It
sure.
doesn't, yeah. And then my second part is one of the things that I think you said or Jim said on why some people don't buy here is that our amenities are not up to par. So at the same time you're saying our amenities are not up to par, you're now asking them to pony up $5,000 to come here. Have you done anything to kind of make it like a little bit more resort, a little bit more fun? I always wonder why you call it Tiki Night on Friday. We don't even have a tiki bar. I mean, we have a beautiful lakefront and a beautiful restaurant. I've gone as a visitor to try to eat lunch at the yacht club because, of course, Tanasi was gone. You can't even sit outside there. There's like, it's like this wide. You have to get up against the building. Why are we not, taking advantage of our beautiful lakefront? Invite people to come in, eat dinner there. There's like not even anybody there on a Saturday afternoon.
Sure.
Bring in
Those
a
are all-
band. Put in a tiki bar.
I agree with you completely. All the amenities have to be reviewed, and they will be reviewed because even though all of our focus has been on infrastructure recently, I have a whole other community that has to be reviewed and has to be looked at and updated, and that isn't going away. It has to be that way, and we are working toward that. Now, in terms of your cost cutting, as John mentioned, we've started that process. And we will continue to start that process. We don't just cut costs once a year. This will be ongoing. This year, you're going to see more costs during the year.
Can you give me an example of something you've just cut costs on?
Public Works is a starter. Public Works has reduced. If you come to the board meeting, I don't want to take away from
Okay,
this. This
sorry.
is going to be a really good thing. If you come to the board meeting this month, we're going to reveal what our continuing improvement value was this year, and some of those key people who really contributed to that this year will be speaking and talking about what they've done to reduce costs and how they have done that, and it's not stopping. I guess I don't want to give you the impression, well, we did it once and Bob's our uncle. No, we're continuing, and it will be a continuing process, reducing staff, reducing processes, reducing costs, everything we can. But they all have to be evaluated because there's nothing worse than me reducing cost or staff and then reduce your customer service.
All right, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. I really want a tiki bar. Sorry.
David Taylor, also from Mialacqua. We arranged for Mialacqua to be first. I personally support the concept of the $5,000 reserve fund fee, which I think is a good thing to call it, but I think it should only be implemented after we have a solid, correct reserve study later this year. I'm not necessarily the best in the world or even the best in the room at reading the room, but I think I can read the room well enough to know I'm in the minority, at least right now, in supporting this fee. So regarding this proposed fee, I have 3 suggestions for you that are related by the principle that they need to follow the new reserve study. I think you should not push for legislation this year. Honestly, if you're realistic, this bill doesn't have any chance of even getting out of committee, and let me tell you why. We have a man who, in my opinion, is one of the very best legislative representatives in the United States in Lowell Russell. He believes in being a representative. He listens to his constituents. He keeps track of communications he gets from them, and he votes the way we ask him to. And he can read the room. He's going to know that as things stand, 60, 65, you name the percentage, but a majority percentage of the village isn't for this. So I don't believe he'll support it. And since he represents most of the village, the bill's not going to get out of committee. You might as well be realistic and look at, okay, now what do we do? And I would say, after you've got the reserve study, after RDI&I has been, thoroughly investigated, present a solid case with detailed financial numbers, which I was pleased to see you did today, on, why we need the fee and see where we can go there. My second suggestion would be, and this sounds off topic, but I don't think it is, the board ought to rescind the premature $80 water fee and refund what's been collected so far. You can hear in the room, there's an emotional connection between this reserve fee and the water fee. My perception is recently there has been, and our excellent board chairman referred to this yesterday when he talked to the Conservative Club, that a feeling has developed lately that the board is our enemy, which I don't believe for a minute, but I understand why people got to feel that way, and the $80 water fee is a huge part of that feeling. I think you ought to rescind it, refund it, reconsider what's needed after an expert firm, which I'm delighted to see you're going to have evaluate the Lackey-Reed approach, and after you've got a reserve study so the needs are clear. I'm really encouraged from December and this month. I hear the board listening and changing its approach in a really positive way. I think that's a wonderful thing, and rescinding the fee would go a long way towards restoring the right climate. And then my last point is, I think if we, if this fee is really needed, and I personally think it's a good idea, I think you ought to try to follow the founding documents in getting it and not go to a legislative approach, which you could describe as, using a trip hammer to crush a gnat. Rick Dram, who has better
That's a good
ideas
quote,
than I
Rick
do
Dram.
a lot of the time, had an idea yesterday. You could have voting over the other side here in community church, let's say for a week.
Well, we can do it at
Put
Chota, too.
paper ballots, in people's hands, get a signature, have a notary there. I think it's possible you could actually get there. But if we were ever going to have, maybe you could do this through our documents as they are, but if legislation was needed, I would use it for this. I think you all feel, and probably rightly, that the requirement of a 2/3 vote of every lot in the village with a notarized signature hamstrings the board and management unduly going forward, which I personally would agree with. And maybe the change you ought to seek for that is changing, you can make fundamental document changes with a supermajority of the lots that vote. You'd have to get into the details of that. But I would do those three things: be realistic, put off the legislation thing for a year until we've got a solid reserve study, rescind the $80 fee, and if we have to have legislation, if we have to make the change, try to do it with voting as our founding documents talk about. Thank you. Now, now I'm going to go home and watch you guys on TV and drink.
My name is Barb Burke. I live
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Chattooga Point. I've got two questions. Well, I had two questions. Now I got a couple comments too. My first question is, all the things that I've seen, and I might not have seen it all, on the Tanasi rebuild doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail. So my question is there going to be a complete fire suppression system throughout the building so that we don't have this kind of problem 30 years from now?
Yes. I can say unequivocally that the very first words out of my mouth in the design was that.
And is it in the design?
Yes, ma'am. It's in there, and it is being built as we speak, or planned as we speak. It hasn't been built yet.
Okay.
Yes, it is absolutely in the plans.
Okay, well, that was one question. And then, as that gentleman was talking, he said that all of the POA expenses for 2025 are going to be the same as 2024. He said that. And then we get our assessment fees, and we've got the usual cost of living increase. So if it's going to be the same, why do we have a cost of living increase?
Well, when he says the total expenses are flat, not that either one of those items is flat. It's the total expenses. So other things have gone up, some have gone down, and some are staying flat. So
Well, no, that's not what he said. He said that it was totally flat for the year combined. So if it's totally flat for the year combined,
John, you want to answer that since it's your words, not mine? There you go, buddy.
Yeah, when you look at the roll-up budget for total expenses, it's a big number. I forget the number. Across all the departments, it's flat year over year. Now, it is adjusted for one-time things like in 2024, there was almost a $2 million capital gain when we sold, I forget what we sold, but we sold some property.
some of the Cooper property is what you sold, isn't it?
No, not yet. We haven't sold any of that, but I don't know. Maybe there was a capital gain in there of almost, insurance proceeds showed up as a capital gain for some reason. So that, when you adjust for that, it's flat. But yeah, expenses have gone up. We had to factor in 3.5% projected inflation for next year for all of our costs, whether it's people working at the golf course need to get cost of living adjustments, our fertilizer goes up, everything across the board. Yeah, electricity went up, our insurance went up over 20% year over year. So there's additional costs that we have to incur every single year. But we did a lot of work to at least keep it, the total flat when you adjust for that $2 million insurance proceeds.
Oh, okay. Well, then my comment is, we planned a long time before we built our house here. And this is an upscale community. There's no doubt about that. And anybody who lives here who can't afford an $80 charge on their water bill for 5 years really shouldn't be here anyway. So sorry, but that's the way it is. If you call for a vote on that, you will never, ever get a yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is John Villa. I'm in Chattooga Point. The gentleman who spoke previously covered most of my points, so I'm not going to go back through those.
Thank you.
But I do have one issue around communications that didn't get covered, and that is that part of the problem with communications that we have in the village is that the communications being used is spinning information. And the point is very clear when you say in the last telegram, the proposal requires legislative approval as it was not included in our original governing documents. Now, you as much as stated yourself that we could do the vote. It does not require legislative approval. The legislative approval is desired because it's easier than going out to the vote.
That's a true statement. That's a true statement.
Then what's stated to most of the villagers who read that, who may not watch these, or it doesn't even get clarified in these meetings, that's not a true statement that's in the telegram. That
Okay, well, I don't want to spin
telegram is very
it, but I will
misleading.
say that the odds are very low. And if we use the odds are very low, that may have been more defined.
I don't doubt the odds are low, but what you're basically doing is taking away the rights of the residents to make things easy for the management. And management should not be working that way. Easy does not equal right.
Gotcha. Understood. And you have a majority of the board here too, listening to you as well, just to point that out.
That's my point. I mean, guys, come on. Let's be realistic in what we're saying. Let's be truthful in what we're saying. Then these communications that you've got going out become meaningful.
Sure.
And you stop a lot of the conflict that's going on in this village.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good afternoon. My name is Barry Quarrell, and I bought my lot in Paradise in 1994 in Tomotley Coves.
Wow.
At that time, we had gravel roads, and the infrastructure was buried, and we've come a long way since that point. I moved here, retired and moved here in 1999. I got a real estate license in '99 and a broker's license 3 years later. The property owners gave me the opportunity to serve on the POA board from 2003 to 2005. Those were contentious times, and we're back to kind of contentious times right now.
It's hard to say. I have no idea what you're talking about.
One of the things that I encouraged and we encouraged is to have town hall meetings, and we couldn't get it done. And I thank you, Chet, for making that happen. It's really an upgrade in communication.
Thank you. Thank you. It's important.
In the 2003 to 2005 period, we were governed primarily by Cooper communities. Yes. They founded it in 1986 here. They had their main headquarters in Buena Vista, Arkansas. Huge community, quite larger than this one, self-contained, Hot Springs, and then here. John Cooper Sr., his vision was that he wanted a community with financially diversified population, okay? And so what he did when he established this is some of the reasons why you have a covenants and restrictions where it takes 2/3 of the property owners to change it. You also have, indeed, a majority of people in order to increase the monthly assessment more than 5%, or the Urban Consumer Index. And you cannot get a special assessment unless, again, the majority of the property owners approve it. At the time that I was on the board, Cooper was still represented. Dan Cooper represented Cooper communities on the board. And he was a wonderful addition because he was a sounding board on some of the decisions we had to make, going back to the concept that John Sr. had, okay? Some of the controversies we dealt with was they wanted to, at that time, they wanted to eliminate the yacht club because it was costing us a lot of money. That was unanimously disagreed to after debate, okay? We also had the dock captains. The docks at that point, the monies that they got was put in a special reserve for docks only. The board decided that had to go into the general fund. And I was the person that delivered that news to the dock captains, and I still have scars from that today.
I can imagine.
We did establish the beach, okay, which is a great asset to the community. And as I look at what's happened since I came here to where we're at today, when we look at all the improvements and amenities and so forth, we have come a long way, and it has been managed very well by boards that succeeded me, and they're doing a wonderful job. We had debates within the board, heated debates, okay? But one thing we all agreed with, that if somebody disagreed with your opinion, it was because they wanted to represent the constituency based on how they felt about it. And I think that's happening today. So we get to today. I take people on tours of Tellico Village, okay? And I really enjoy that. When I retired, I sat behind a desk. I wanted to get out with people. That's what I went into real estate. So when I do a tour, I take them and spend 20 minutes with them ahead of time, telling them about the village, the concept that Cooper had, which basically said, in this village we have blue-collar workers, we have retired CEOs, and we have everyone in between. And nobody really gives a care about what you made or what you did. We're just happy to have a great time here.
Sure.
Okay? So I show them, talk about the governing, show them the activity sheet, okay? These are founded by property owners, okay? And you can stay busy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I show them the fees. At that point, when I started out, basically we had the assessment fee, that's all. And then the user fees, tell them the concept was if you want to participate, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. And then I show them a pie chart, and the pie chart basically breaks down the assessment, which says how we spend that money, how it's done.
Sure.
Okay? So now, I'm here, part of that review is a $200 transfer fee.
Correct.
$200 to anybody, doesn't matter whether you have a $400,000 home or a $2 million home, doesn't make any difference. But one of the things that I did was, in order for that concept, yesterday I went into the MLS and looked at our community. We have 124 single-family homes for sale, okay? 89 of those are under 700,000. The homes in Wind River start at 1.3 million.
Sure.
The cheapest home at Rarity Bay is $770,000 currently. Okay? So there's no comparison to what this community is, the way it was founded, versus those. As far as the increase in the transfer fee, I support that. Okay? I think we need it, and I'm for it. But I'm going to take a little different viewpoint than my colleagues that were part of that session. Okay? When you move in terms of that 124 people, or homes for sale, 89 of those are homes under 700,000.
Sure.
Okay, and the breakdown of those is, if you bear with me a moment. The breakdown of those is we have basically 9 are priced under 400,000. 4 of them were priced between 400 and 500,000. 30 are priced between 500 and 600,000, and 37 are priced between 600 and 700,000.
Sure. Okay.
So 73% of the homes in this village are under 700,000. My argument or my concern is a flat fee of $5,000. 200 doesn't make a difference. When you get to 5,000 and you're asking for 73% of the population to absorb the burden of financing this, your current Freddie Mac interest rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage yesterday was 6.91%. So we're facing an issue here where, in my opinion, $5,000 on homes in the $500,000 class, okay, is detrimental to the marketability and saleability of people coming in and the homeowners that are here now. Right now, it takes, if you go 0.5%, which was
The original,
suggested originally, so you get up to 1 million where they're paying $5,000. I think that's a fair way to do it. It spreads it on an incremental basis, and I don't think at this point in time there ought to be a flat fee of $5,000.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Linda Fall, and my husband Tom and I own a home in Coyote Coves. And my question is regarding the wording or the scope of the bill itself for the reserve fee.
Yes, ma'am.
And if this bill passes, is it limited to $5,000?
Yes.
So that,
Unless the board votes not to use that, then we would go to our own documents to determine how we wanted to do that, if we were willing to make those changes within the documents, yes.
so you would have the flexibility to raise that above,
No, no.
below?
It would have to be outside of that. Well, I have to be direct and say, I've not challenged that particular question, because if we have the ability to stop it and then use our own documents, if our own documents take us above 5,000, I don't know what the answer to it is. I haven't chased that question, to be brutally honest.
Well,
And by the
that's-
way, one other thing that I wanted to add to this that I forgot to mention is to this other gentleman's point, two things will stop the bill. One of them is if Lowell Russell will not carry the bill. That's the first and biggest hurdle. The second one is legislation still has to approve it even if he does carry it. So those are two places where I have to be direct and say, if they don't make it past those, it's dead in the water anyway. Please go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, then, do I assume from what you just said that, let's say that the bill does pass,
Yes.
and so for everyone whose house goes up for sale, it will be $5,000 a year from now?
It will
that
still be
you-
5,000.
It would still be 5,000. I
Yes,
thought you had I thought you said something about it would need to be voted on again in a year.
The board would have to vote whether to apply the $5,000 rule every year.
But they could also raise it.
That's an altogether different, those are two different diverging situations. Well, that's the part I'm not convinced of. If they have the ability to stop it and use our own documents, I'm not sure that that fact is true.
It
So
would be
I
nice-
can't tell you that as a fact. Back to the, not spinning it, trying to tell you it is. I can't say that that's an absolute fact, because if they give us the ability to turn it off, then we revert back to our own documents. And if our own documents say something different, there you are.
I'm not really comfortable with that answer.
I'm
but
not comfortable
I
with
will-
it either, but it's
I
the
will
truth.
take it. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to say, looking into a white light in a church, it's not a good thing.
No, I understand.
It's not good. I'm Jim. I'm from Tanasi Point, and I built my house 20 years ago. And I'm very vested in the community. My youngest daughter, she went to high school in North City. She helped out at the whole old folks home for 3 years. My son, when he lived here, we made him volunteer to the fire department. If you live here, you got to give back. That's what we told our youngest daughter. He was a paramedic, so he gave back. Our oldest daughter bought a house, lived for 6 years in Tokwa until the baby was big enough to go to school, and the baby had to they moved to Fairview.
Sure.
So for many years, Tellico Village has always won awards for the friendly community. And as you look around on a lot of the different areas, there's postings that be kind to your friends, be kind to your fellow neighbors. This is a neighbor community. It always has been. Things have changed a little bit, but we could maybe get back on track. Here's my point. My point is, I understand, living in Tanasi Point, we're across from the new construction. Scott, this goes to you. And I could see where they're cutting the ground for the new golf cart path. They had to add the dirt, as you said, compact it, add the dirt so that they can take the saddle out of the landscape there, to raise it, to elevate it. My question is at this time, at phase 0 that we're at, has the executive board or has the committee, which worked hard on it, I'm sure the building is going to be beautiful. I think the Cove, the people that live in the Cove, the biggest complaint or thought or scared about is looking at a Walmart parking lot with lights. You know, all these new vehicles are all high-intensity light bulbs. So if they're at this construction point of moving earth, was there ever a proposal to put a berm in there, to raise the berm so you could put landscaping? I know, Chet, you've said that there's going to be landscaping, extensive landscaping. Hopefully it's going to be holly trees and thick landscaping so that the people that live in that particular cove don't have to see the high-intensity headlights in their living room, bedrooms at all hours of the day, especially in the winter months. It gets darker faster, so therefore, you'll see more headlights. And the other question is, I mean, as far as asking about a berm, between the golf cart path and the parking lot, a berm to be put in to kind of keep it secluded. So when you're on the water, people that come in and they float in that cove, or people that boat there, you're not looking directly at blacktop. And the other thing is, a thought is when you start purchasing light towers to be put in there. The light tower is going to have heavy shielding, so the shields go beyond the lights,
Yes.
high-intensity lights, so that the reflection, you don't create more light pollution to the entire cove that lives there, because it reflects off the water and then it reflects upward. So you're, whatever,
Yes.
if you put 3 lights in, you're getting 6 lights because you're reflecting, so the lower shields. And when Jeff Gagley was our director, Jeff Gagley put a lot of the lights on timers, basically. So in the summer, in the winter, the lights went off. They might kept one on into that parking lot, closer to the restaurant for security. People are in there. But when golf operations ceased, the lights went off, so that they didn't have to. Golf operation wasn't there where there would be cars. As the size of this parking lot on the blueprints that you're looking at, I know we need parking. I've been looking at it for many, many years. There's definitely need parking. The size of the parking lot, the scope of it is quite a bit. Like Chet said before in a couple of the board meetings, it might get filled up right away, but through the years, it'll really totally be tapered off, or through the months, it'll be tapered off. It'll never get filled completely. But the concern of the cove is looking at all that blacktop. If you're in this phase, can you put berms in to landscape it? You know, like if anybody went down and vacationed down in Florida, every community there, they're bermed in with dense landscaping. Heck, you could go over to Costco and you could look at Bank of America. It's landscaped in. You don't even know that building's there coming off of 11. So our concern is, and for future, for the board and for the committee, hopefully they turned around and they looked at it. I mean, I was in this church at a community meeting many months ago, and this question was brought up, and a representative from the MGA says, we don't care about the people across the water. They don't really matter. And the thing is you're my neighbor. Yeah, we do matter. You matter. You love your golf. That's great. We love golf too. But we do matter, you know. And well, I'm asking
Yes.
about the bar. I was going to put it all out there, and then you could just answer it all.
Couple of things on that. You're the third person that lives across the cove from the parking lot or from the rebuild that has cornered me. The other 2 have done it as well, or 2 other of your neighbors have done that. Yes, we are aware of that. The one thing I will say is that the landscaping is our responsibility. It's not the contractor's responsibility, so it's the POA's, and we have plans for that. The grading will be set so that we can put that landscaping in and be cognizant of your view as well as others, as well as you're coming around on 444, you also have that issue,
Sure.
especially at night,
Right.
with the lights. We have also addressed the lighting in that parking lot to make sure that it will not go out into the cove. Certainly not across the cove, and will not go out into the community. I have been invited by others as we go through this to go to their back decks and have a look across to make sure that we take care of that, and I will be taking people up on that offer as well. Yes.
You're
So
welcome
the
on
answer
our
is
block.
yes.
Okay.
We are cognizant of that. I live on the water as well and look out on the 444 bridge. My wife wanted a different lot, but this was
I understand that
this was
spot.
the water lot available. So fully aware of what you're saying, and yes, I'm there with you because I'm one of the homeowners that same
I mean,
situation.
while we're in the beginning stages and you're moving a lot of ground, This is my
We are
question to
aware-
ask
we are
you.
aware of it, and we're addressing it as we go
Okay.
forward.
Thanks,
So,
Scott.
yes.
Thanks, Chet.
Yep, two things. Number one, all homeowners matter, period. I don't care where you live. I know, but yeah, you do matter. And so that's one. Number two, the lights that we're buying are LED, and they're specifically able to be focused as opposed to just a blinding light covering everything. And that's one of the reasons why we bought that particular type.
And you're talking about shields down?
They can actually be focused where I've got a cone of lights. Yeah,
They're all programmable.
all programmable.
And then I was also talking about the timing issue, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the programmable part.
Programmable.
Yep.
Not that it's a second thought later on, say, oh, we missed that one.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's
All
not
right,
been
Thank
missed.
you.
You bet. Please, sir.
Good afternoon. I think it's evening now. My name is
Almost.
Chris Offer. I'm from the great neighborhood of Tanasi. I'm a little impaired today because I was cleaning out the valleys on my roof today, and the ladder slipped out from underneath me, and I fell about 10 feet straight on my back on the ladder. So I'm a little bruised up and not feeling so well, so I'll keep my comments short and very concise, I promise. My comments are really kind of more towards the board members. And, you know, one of the comments, things that was presented early on was, you know, I actually texted this and I said, of course the realtors want a new resort-style pool to make it easier for them. My thinking is maybe we should be asking the property owners what they want. So it's not that we don't value the realtor's opinion. I think it is important, but the property owner's opinion is even more important, especially since we're at a stage of build-out. The second thing I wanted to say to the board members is that we had a flawed reserve study, and that was brought up a little bit, but that's so important because we don't know how much money we need for our reserves. Right now, we're asking for a new mechanism going to the legislator outside of our covenants to try to get more money in our reserves, and we don't even know how much money we need in our reserves. So that should be put on hold until we get the reserve study done and truly understand our financial needs in the village here. Oh, hell. I don't have anything else.
All right.
That's it. Thanks for having me.
I feel better, brother.
Thank you, Chris.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Smith, and I'm in Tokwa. And
Yes,
this is very short, very simple. I'm going to use this forum to ask about safety. And that is, I understand that Loudon Utility has passed the torch for the replacement of our streetlights to the POA, and for some reason, I can't get a streetlight replaced. Simple. But you know what? We changed times, and it's darker earlier, and a black top street with the blackness of night is not exactly safe. And I walk my dog in the evening when I get home. And 2 months I asked to get this light fixed. And now we have others on our street that need to be replaced as well. So I don't know how to I just thought I would put it out there, so if you're having a board meeting, maybe you'll talk about it.
Mr. Benoit is your man.
It also helps with the crime deterrent.
Oh, no, you don't have to sell me on why you
And
should
it
have your
fits
street
right
lights.
in with the shielding of light and big LED. Please don't blind us with light.
Gotcha.
Follow you back to your seat when I get your name and number.
Perfect, and I've got the address. I've got the address.
Great. Yeah, Matt handles that now, and we are looking into that and trying to get caught up because we kind of got handed that to us, so to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Pamela, and I live on Coyote Coast. And we've lived here about 3 years, and our water pressure has gone down almost in half, and our bill's gone up more than double. And that's a big concern. I think the gentleman mentioned earlier, sorry, I'm nervous, Gentlemen have mentioned earlier that this is a big emotional thing. We've got the $80 fee, we've got the Loudon tax hike, we've got the assessments, and they're all compiled on top of each other. And I think that's not that I'm not for some of it, but all of them together is a very emotional thing.
Sure.
And
Can't
I probably
argue.
can't afford to live here anymore. So compacting them all is very emotional. And I wanted to ask one question really that I don't understand, and it may be a moot point, but when this community was really built, it was a planned community. Cooper did all of it. He had all the lots, all of the things. There's not like a lot of families have moved in with 5 kids. It should have been easy to make that infrastructure for 2 adults in a household, and that's still the average. So why is the water not a Cooper problem in the first place? Why can't we go back to Cooper to have him fix what he broke in the first place?
Okay, I love. The unfortunate answer to that question is, once Cooper turned it over, his job or his position is, have a nice day, and that's the end of it. We can't go back to them. Now, theoretically, to be really, again, not spinning it, we could probably go back and sue him and try to get him to do that. It's been done before in associations that I've worked in the past, high rises and some others in Atlanta. They ended up having to go back to the developer and sue them and to get them to repair window installations or whatever. And so is it possible? Yeah. Is it practical? Probably not. And so that's the answer to the question. And to your question about water pressure, you are not alone. And we are working feverishly to put in place whatever it takes to get that pressure up. I realize that everybody will say, well, 20 pounds of pressure is appropriate for, that's the law. We don't have to put in more than that. Well, 20 pounds of pressure in these new faucets will not get water out the end of the faucet. And there are people in this community that I know and are friends that if they run their irrigation, they can forget taking a shower. And so those are real things. That's not, me throwing out fear-mongering. That's a reality. And so we are currently in the process of evaluating that and trying to get it set up where our water pressure is better than that. And nobody's brought this up, but I'll really step off the edge and say, you do realize that if you have a fire at your house and you have to use 2 hydrants to solve that problem, you won't get any water out the end of the spigot, the hose. It will not be coming out to put the fire out. And that becomes a safety issue, and that's one of the reasons why I'm concerned about that. And your concern does not only not go unnoticed, it's being addressed.
Well, so my very old faucet should not be upgraded.
And for the moment, I guess my honest answer is probably not. Yeah.
Thank you. There was something else, but I forgot. Thanks.
If you think about it, come back. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Toby Henry. I live in Kahiti. Lived here since 2018. And
Tahitians do come to the town hall. I'm just throwing that out.
They do. They do. And I agree with the previous speaker's statements about all the fees and whatnot. It's a struggle. I mean, it's a hard day when my water bill is more than my power bill. Okay, did never see that coming. But is it correct in my understanding that this issue's been known since 2015? Is that correct with as far as the interest structure problem?
That's long before my time.
Okay, that's what I thought I had heard.
Since 2018 is when we first started studying it as a problem.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, somewhere along the line there should have been disclosure to people
Well, we've talked
in.
about it forever.
Right.
And I have to be blunt about this, and I'm probably going to make some people very angry when I say it because this is emotional. But we've been talking about this since 2018. And it wasn't until we charged it $80 that everybody now got really interested in what we've been talking about since 2018.
Well, I was
and I get it. Don't believe me. I'm not being stupid here. I understand why that rings everybody's bell.
Well, you got my attention with the 52% increase in 2024.
Sure,
So
and that should have too. I agree.
A lot.
Yeah.
But also, I needed to ask a question, and for every 1,000 gallons that you're purchasing, is it coming from LUB, right? L-U-B?
Yes, ma'am. Well, it's LUB and TAS.
And Task, okay.
Well, you're in Kahiti, I'm sorry. It's all TAS.
Okay, so the amount that's being paid or by Tellico Village to that utility company for the purified water or the clean water, what's the dollar amount per thousand? Is it like $4.50? Okay, $4.17 per 1,000 gallons. And yet I'm looking at my bill and it's massively above that. And I hate to say it, but my sister, she lives in Rarity Bay.
Yep.
And I mean, her water bill, she sends me pictures of her water bill just to kind of rub it in.
Oh, that's
and her
not
bill,
good.
her bill last month was $23. My bill for 4,600 gallons was just over $200. And that,
Is that including the $80 fee?
yes,
Yeah.
it includes that. But even so, with an $80 minimum or 80 some odd dollar minimum water fee, it is a struggle. And just because people have money doesn't mean that it should be taken from them. And I'm not saying that you're providing facts and stuff where
Sure.
you're justifying the need and with the community. But it still doesn't make it easy. And it's really hard when I have to choose not to take my bath, okay? And I like my baths, but it takes a lot more water, okay? So anyway, thank you for your time, just getting some facts and making
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
I understand what's going on.
No, I completely understand because I actually live here too.
Yeah,
and
I know
pay
you
that
do.
same water bill.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Tom Kovaleski, I live in your neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
We came to visit you a couple times. I have a question about the 19% water bill increase
Yes.
on top of the water bill we already have. If we are getting a discounted water rate from Loudon Utilities, which I understand we are, if you
I
lived in
think
Loudon
it's more
across
accurate
the
to say we're getting wholesale.
Okay,
I don't
well,
think
if you
Loudon
lived
sells
across
anything
the street
discount.
from the Loudoun County Utilities, your rate would be more per drop of water than we're paying here. So if we have that discounted rate, why are we paying so much more to the POA than people who are outside in Loudoun County don't pay? Where's the rest of the money going?
Everything, and you know, we've gone over this and we can go over it again in another board meeting where we can bring up the actual dollars and cents. Everything goes to fund the community and fund the process. And yes, we are not giving you a pass-through value. You are absolutely correct. We are marking it up. I don't even want to pretend otherwise. And that money that we mark it up goes back to pay for, or it has in the past gone back to pay for Public Works and their staff and those kinds of things. And because Public Works has become far more organized and efficient, we're now putting those funds toward things like the reserves or other projects within the community. But it all goes back into the community. But you're correct. You're paying more than the $4 and something cents per thousand. You are.
Okay, next question, and possibly just a comment. Reserves.
Yes, sir.
I came from Illinois, and POAs had to have separate reserves for everything they were funding. Roofs, sidewalks, streets, whatever. We have put all the money together, and we don't, I guess, know where it's all going.
Oh, yes, we do.
Where do the dock fees go, for example?
Dock fees dock fees are going to, usually, the majority of it goes to maintain the docks. But it's not, I'm not going to tell you that I took $1 in today for docks and I spent $1 over here for docks. It's going all into the reserves, but the majority of that fund is calculated on what it's going to cost us to maintain those docks.
Okay, I would like to suggest that we break the reserves out.
Well, there are states all over the place, and let me tell you the good news and the bad news. In Florida, when you have a reserve, and the reserves in Florida says that if you're going to do roads, let's just use our own, if you're going to put $1.2 million every year into reserve for roads, not one penny of that can be spent on anything but roads. And if you put it in there for roofs, not one penny can come out of that area for roofs. In fact, that's they consider that fraud in Florida anyway. And so you can't, the beauty of pooling it says, I'm going to put in 1.2 million. I mean, we give you a list of how we're funding reserves and why and what those dollars go for. And that's where they're spent. But if you did it the way you're talking about, then if we had, I'll give you a silly example. Let's say we put 1.2 million in for roads, and we had a problem with one of our roads, it washes out, whatever, and we have to go to reserves to replace it, and now we went to 1.5 million. I would have to come to the community and ask for a special assessment to pay for that difference. I could not take it out of any other part of the reserves because each bucket is sacrosanct.
Have a reserve for the roads or the docks or whatever, and have a separate reserve fund that covers any excess.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but I know everybody's been told that, but it's the same bank account, they just accounted for it separately.
Okay, well, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Penny Mansko. Oops, sorry.
Whoa, yeah, that's easier.
Yeah, can't reach it. I have a question about the Tanasi rebuild. Our boat is behind the Tanasi restaurant golf course. We're at KLM. And currently, the path from the parking lot down to the dock entrance is full of grass, and it has been for the past 2 years. It is very uneven, and in some areas, it's gravel, which is very difficult to walk in sandals during the summertime, and also to pull a cart or a cooler down there, very, very difficult. So I'm curious, what is the plan during construction? Is it the construction company or is it the POA on the path from the parking lot down to the docks? What is the plan? Because something's got to be done because it is not good the way it is right now.
Yes, well, that's a two-part answer to that question. One is, obviously, we are relocating the parking lot from where it currently is, once we get into the next phase of construction, over to where the green is, so you will be further away, but we will have, as part of the new cart paths, there will be a path down from that parking lot in 2 different locations along what's a shared cart path and access path. And then I hadn't heard that issue before, so I will take it as a task for me to figure out what we're going to do during construction in that area, because it has to be safe, and you're below the safety fences and you're below the silt fences. So I'll look at that, and then I'll work with Matt and make sure that whether it's construction or whether it's public works, we'll get that. I'll put that on my to-do list. But thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't gone that far down. I've been more focused on the building, the construction that's going on now. So thank you.
It's a mess. Thank you.
Hello?
Yep, you're there.
I just wanted to make a point that I support, if we need the money for the reserves, I just kind of trust that you have done the math, and for some reason we need it. My concern is over how we're getting the money, a flat fee versus a percentage.
Yes.
And my concern is that the percentage, or the flat fee, would create a disparate economic impact. I'm in the finance business. I work for a financial company, and any change that we make, obviously there's regulatory guidelines, a lot of initials, the EEOC, the Federal Housing Committee, and so forth. Any kind of fee that we make on customers or credit or whatever needs to go through the economic disparate testing to make sure that there is no discrimination, although not initially intended, but it could be some economic disparity unintended. And I think the sentiment that you're feeling from a lot of folks is we may need the money. That's question number one. Question number two is how it's going to be implemented. A flat fee versus
Percentage.
The percentage.
Correct.
And I think that's something to consider is that, again, the feeling of that equality. You know, there's a lot of equality rules in different industries and so forth, but I think that's my concern is that it would be more equitable based on different classes. And, you know, for example, what if there's a desperate impact to someone that has an ADA disability? That would be potentially a problem with, you know, you making that rule. And has there been any studies done of those, I don't know, 70 or 80 houses that are on the lower end of the
So let me ask you this question. I completely understand your point. And there's been great discussions and consternation over this specific topic of the difference between a flat fee and a percentage. And let me ask you this, and I'll give you the principles behind what I originally came up with the percentages. If I buy a house for $500,000, it's $2,500. If I buy one for $500,000, it's $2,500. And that seems reasonable based on that. And of course, there's some flexibility in that. If you bought a house for $2 million, now you're up to $12,000. And those who buy the house for $12 million want to know what they're getting for their $12,000 versus the person who just paid $2,500.
Well, there could be a cap. I mean, there's sometimes you know, the best ideas are when there's flexibility and ingenuity and thought, and all views are considered. And I heard you say earlier that, you know, everybody's voice is equally appreciated.
Absolutely.
Something like that.
Yes.
So, you know, those on the high end, they have their concerns about paying an exorbitant amount. If it was 5%, 10%, or whatever, that would be, a horrible amount that would impact them. Maybe there's some kind of middle ground where there's a compromise.
Sure.
So I would just say to hear all voices and to look at all possible solutions, whatever the fee ends up being.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Rick Sloan from somewhere up there in Tanasi. I'm going to try and cut this down a little bit.
That's good because it's almost 5 o'clock, or it is 5 o'clock, sorry.
Well, there are places to be for most of us at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
I noticed in one of the recent telegrams, notes from the PSAC committee. This is January. $475,000 worth of expenditures were requested for the month of January.
No.
Well,
I have
that's the
to
way it
correct you.
reads.
It was $400,000 requested in the meeting in January.
Yes.
It was not for the month of January.
Well, heaven forbid what we look for in the next 11 months then.
No,
Again.
that was for the entire year, actually. All of those were projects that are scheduled out over the entire year. And I understand why if you were sitting in that meeting and didn't understand or didn't hear that portion of it, it would come across as, oh my God, actually it was $800,000.
Well, we talked about a spending problem in days gone by. But to go a step further, do those funds come out of operating revenues? Do they come out of reserves? Because that would help soften that 475 to some extent.
It is coming, sorry, Judy, you want to speak to that, or Matt, either one, since it's Matt's money. Matt's department's money, forgive me.
I can't hear it, sorry.
They're all in the budget as capital. They're part of the capital spending, so they would be coming out of reserves.
Still can't hear you.
No.
I'd give you mine, but mine's fixed. Just use his.
All of those projects are on the capital budget, which means they will come out of reserves. They are recommended by PSAC and then reviewed in the FAC meeting, and then the FAC recommends them, and then the board votes to approve them. But they are all anticipated in the budget for the total spending for the year. The timing of those just happened to be that a lot of them are being reviewed and approved in January, but they're part of the total plan for the year. Not like we're going to have $800,000 of spending every month. That's not. They come out of cumulative reserve balances. And they're all, everything, there's no new spending in there. It's all part of the maintain, replace, repair. Those are all anticipated in the reserve study. They're all part of the equipment listed in the reserve study. This is just replacing them and repairing them and upgrading them.
That fabulous deal that we got on those grapple trucks a couple of years ago doesn't look quite so fabulous now. One of the things you said early on, having to do with the budget for Tanasi, you said on time and on budget. Gosh, I thought it was a fixed fee.
It is a fixed budget price, but
Okay,
what we're
so
telling you is
it
thus
couldn't
far.
possibly be over budget then.
I'll let him address that one.
It could be over budget if there were unexpected underground obstructions or other things like that that would add to the cost. As I mentioned, we did increase the amount of spoils being removed behind the 9th hole, so that did increase the guaranteed fixed price, but we found value engineering to reduce it below that. So there are savings that we're addressing as we move forward, and because it's a guaranteed maximum price, the way the contract is written, any cost savings from within the subcontractors as the contractor is bringing on their subs to do the work, the drywall, the painting, the steel erection, the concrete, all of those savings are being addressed at our bi-weekly meetings, and we're keeping track of that, and we get all of that comes back to us as a reduction in the cost at the end. So when I say on budget, what I mean by that is that none of the other subs are exposing us to additional costs through unforeseen situations or things like that. So that's the report that I had there. That's why I say it that way.
Now,
but it's on schedule.
Now, I and probably countless others have commented on Tanasi in one form or fashion. But my understanding is when you say it's all in fixed price, sort of the out-the-door price, that included fixtures, equipment, furnishings, et cetera, et cetera. Are we correct on that?
Go ahead.
You're correct right up until you said furnishings. The building is complete. It's like buying a house. You get the house. What you put in the house from furniture, smalls for your kitchenware, that is in our budget, and that's what the POA will be providing, and that was presented separate from the construction contract.
And how much is that?
It's about
Only $1.5 million. Gosh, what a savings. You know,
we presented this. This was presented as
Scott,
okay.
I'm not
Never
picking
mind.
on
Go
you.
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
I'm not picking on you. It's the total of it's the 11.5 and 1.5.
No. The guaranteed fixed price contract is for $9,900,000 and change.
So our
so the total
price
is the total all-in price is the 11 million that we advertised to the community.
Thank you.
There's been no change in that.
Thank you. I stand corrected. And last but not least, I know there was a thing called the holidays. And everybody likes to have their time with their family and so on and so forth. But I'm deeply disappointed in the context that with all of the studies that Jacobs has done, with all of the thousands and thousands of dollars that we have poured out to them, that they don't have the information here today for this meeting before your next board meeting to talk about TAP. and look at the differences between the 21 and the 23 reports. Though, that's a shortfall. And I don't want to point a finger, but with the exception of you being good enough, silly enough to jump into the middle of this, be careful what we wish for. But here we are. And Jacobs has not lived up to the dollars that we spent on them. Or they were not asked to, and I don't know which is which. So having said that much of it, we did, or we do have a number of the board people here. And when it comes to the $80, memory serves me that the gentleman who is now sitting at the head of the table on the board was the only one that voted against the $80 assessment at that time. That being said, I'll make a motion from the floor. Perhaps I can get a second from those of you who are left. Let's table the $80 a month now until we get a firm plan. There's nobody in the village, to my knowledge, that doesn't realize we have a problem and doesn't realize that we need to do something, but we don't know what we need to do, nor do we know what it's going to cost. We can always say we'll throw money in the pot, we'll throw money in the pot. We don't know what we're throwing it at. It's a dartboard. So with that idea in mind, motion to table it until we get, and table it immediately, and table it so that the clause that Mike slipped in to make it adjustable on an annual basis, et cetera, no clause to make it adjustable. If you want it adjusted, you make a whole new case for that adjustment at the end of the year. But do I have a second?
Rick
Van seconds it. All in favor?
All right, I'm going to step a little bit out of line because perhaps I should turn this over to Chet, but this is a meeting for us to discuss. I'm going to let the board members deal with your $80 assessment request a table. That's something that they need to take up. Let me finish. Take that up at the board meeting next week. I will address your question about why Jacobs doesn't have the information. They have all of the information. They were asked to do some things by the board members to compare certain things and also to look at the assessments, look at the alternatives that they had proposed for which at the time they determined were either not feasible or not the most feasible solution. So they didn't provide cost estimates for that. They were asked to go back and look at the feasibility of those and provide the cost estimate for that. The cost estimating piece is what's driving the timetable for them to have. The minute I get that, I will present that information to the board and I will present that information to the community so that we understand it and you know where we're going. And then I think it's up to the board to determine on the financial side on that. That's not my responsibility. My job is to get whatever the right projects are designed and implemented and to help figure out what are the right projects. And I've been driving that, and Chet and I had that conversation when, against my wife's recommendation, because she thinks I'm nuts too, that I want the right answer. I'm a homeowner. I'm vested in this community. We built our last house right here in Tellico Village. So we're staying. I want the right answer. And that's my commitment. And I made that commitment to all of you the day Chet introduced me 2 board meetings ago. So I'll get that for you. I've got to have to defer to Chet and John on your other motion. That's not my, I have no point in that.
Understood. And before Chet jumps in there, the reason I bring it up today is I fear that somebody would say, oh, well, we got to bury this in an executive session until something freezes over. I don't want that to happen. I think it should be an open hand. You play it as an open hand. It should be public. And I just don't see any reason to turn the villagers upside down and shake them till their pockets are empty before it's necessary, and we don't know what's going to be necessary.
Okay, I'm going to, again, address the half of that, and that's the technical side. I've made a commitment to talk to anybody in the village at any time. I've been asked by the Lions Club, and I've been asked by the HOA to give presentations on this same information here and stay around for whatever questions from the homeowners. I think the HOA publication has already said I'll be there next, but whatever the day their next social is, I don't remember exactly it. And then the Lions Club as well. So if you're in either of those, I'll be there. You can corner me. And if I have that information from Jacob at the time, I'll be more than happy to share it and I will continue to do that and make myself available. And if you just want to invite me over to the yacht club and sit down and in a room and talk to you about this, more than happy to sit there. And if you really want to listen to the engineering side, I'll engineer it for you too. I'll talk to all the engineering technical details and all. That's what I do for a living.
Thank you. Chet, give me your last shot.
I don't have any shots, brother. You went way above my head when you started doing motions and all of those things. That's the board. And they will have to deal with that. But I will say, in answer to... Guys, there's so many legal issues with the statement you just made. But anyway, I just need to say one thing. I don't disagree with you that anything that we do, any decisions we make that are about the $80 should be made. The point of this meeting is not to be making motions, but to have your voice heard by the board. That's why they're here. And so that they understand what your thoughts are.
Thank you.
You bet. Sir, back again.
Yeah, I'm still Roger George from Tanasi.
Good.
Just wanted to use this to bring up a thing that I brought up, I've sent to the board and stuff regarding the Tanasi build and the guest dock. I've sent some information probably a year or so ago, a few people on the board. Keep in mind, I wanted it to be part of the budget so that we don't get the building done and then we come up and we have what we have today, which is horribly inadequate, and we're turning voters away. So please consider or take this as a way to make sure that that guest dock is part of our planning that's completed when the restaurant's ready for business.
So, in answer to that question, we have already gone to TVA, and I always get TRDA and TVA crossed. Anyway, TVA, and they have given us a tentative ruling. What that means is they aren't done with us yet. Yep. And the answer to that is you ain't doing nothing. We aren't giving you extra docks. We aren't letting you move it. We aren't letting you do anything. Now, that's their tentative. That means they're still open to discuss that, but that is their initial shot across the bow.
Yeah, as long as we're pursuing it, we're not forgetting pursuing it, that's all I can ask.
Yeah, no, it's definitely part of the plan and always has been, by the way.
All right, thanks.
You bet.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we're at.
Yep.
My name is Doug Randall, and I live in Tanasi Point for the second time. Lived here 25 years ago when there were some issues, and I realized, Chet, that's way before you. But there were some issues that started to get way out of hand. Black tie only at the yacht club, whatever. We left, okay? So we've built again. Now, this is supposed to be the last house. I'm ready to leave. I've not ever seen such a money grab by the feeling of all the property owners that are maybe still here, that you're dipping into things without going through the procedure that these people have understood for years, that things would come to a vote by the property owners, and it's the other way around. You've got the POA board coming to a vote for the property owners. So there should have been, and there used to be, an adjustment as to how it was brought to the property owners, besides the method that's being used now, which evidently turned out to be next door. I mean, that's what it feels like.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I don't know any other way. I'm sure you don't want 1,000 people walking into the office and into your facilities and asking questions. So you have a town meeting. So here we are, but yet some of the things that people are concerned about is there's a money grab going on, and that's what it amounts to. And I heard someone refer this evening about the fact, well, if you can't afford $80, maybe you shouldn't live here. I'm sure, Chet, you and I are of the same thought. What you afford and what you pay are two different things.
Sure.
Okay? So nobody's going to tell me what I can afford. I went over to Wind River, and the guy says to me, you might not be able to afford this. I said, you just made a large mistake. Goodbye. You don't take that assumption, okay? So people that have problems with the $80, and so do I, is because among the verbiage that got put in that near the end was, and other projects as deemed. And that's not what we understood. We understood it was strictly for the water issue. And you've said that it's just for that. But
Absolutely, and when we use that term, other issues, what that was translating, because that train is coming, and I don't mean additional, I mean different. Those are projects simply for water and sewer. They're not other issues as we find them that relate, and maybe that wasn't clear enough, that relate to water and sewer. I'm not telling you that we can take that $80 and go out and put a new pool in just because we got some extra and everybody wants a new, what was the term they used? Resort pool. No. I apologize that you were left with that impression.
I don't think I was left with that opinion, but I do think of the neighbors that I have spoken to that said, what's going on? And these people have been here when I was here the first time.
Sure.
Okay, so there's still a lot of unrest in the property owners in certain cases. Not all of them come to these town halls.
I agree.
You can see.
I wish they would, but no, I agree.
Well, okay. But the thing is that still, you're using the water source for your funding because you can't reach into the dues that we pay. And you're capped at 5% as I understand it.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. So what was the 3% this year supposed to be? A pat on the head because we're all paying the 80? I mean,
I can't answer that one. That was a board decision.
Oh, board? Okay, the POA board made that decision?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm not yet got completely involved with all this, and I apologize, but this is the first town hall meeting I've been to in the 5 years we've been here. So now I'm going to be to all these meetings so that I understand this. But the thing is, you're still using the $80 for what right now?
It's going into a fund and it's directly being spent on all the projects for simply water and sewer.
Only those 5 projects?
Only the 5 projects, actually. We've not gone outside of that.
And what created the urgency for right now to collect for it when we were under the impression it was being used for improvements? To be used toward improvements.
No, it's been for those projects from day one. That's never been for that.
So what you're telling me is that the 19%, the 21%, all these percentages that you've raised the water usage bills hasn't gone toward that?
No. It goes toward the operation of the community.
What did it go toward? You raised the rates, I say you, I don't mean you. The rates, pardon me, went up again, and then the threshold of the rates was lowered.
Actually, it was not lowered. It was kept the same in some cases. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of...
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the tiki bar part of the resort pool.
Our LUB water rates went up January the 1st to $4.17 per 1,000 gallons from $3.50. That was a 19% increase. It was a 19% increase from $3.50 to $4.17. Our rates, we kept the base rate the same. We increased the rate for 2001 up to 15,000 gallons from $9 to $13. The other 2 rates above that also remained the same. The margin that we create on all the gallons that are consumed is in the high 60%, which we have been counseled represents the distributor's normal markup. Any normal distributor in this business marks their water rate up by the high 60%. That markup on the water, after you take the water minus the cost of the water, is then used to cover the rest of the operating expenses of the department. Everything that comes to the bottom is then available to, we have one, as you've said, we have one, as everybody knows, we have one reserve account that can be used for a variety of sources. Primarily, first, we would look to that to cover base level needs for improvements or to maintain, repair, and replace water and sewer infrastructure. Beyond that, it's also available to cover subsidies of other departments. All of the funds, the cash is not fungible. It goes in one account. Primarily, the reason is to cover all of the expenses of the water and the sewer plus base levels, not the kind of infrastructure improvements we're talking about now. It's not to cover $37 million worth of improvements. It would never be sufficient for that. So that's the way it works. Primarily, it covers all of the costs of its own department, but then we have other aspects of public works, et cetera, that have no revenue source, like roads, which are $1.5 million a year. So that's where that comes in. And likewise, and I know you've heard Chet say it, only about a third of our revenue total comes from your assessments. That's the only generic form of revenue that we have that could be used to cover other expenses. So that's my answer.
Thank you. All right, the comment was I'm not close enough to the microphone. Yeah, usually it's too loud. Okay, so as I just understood, there's something slightly different than what was originally told by us. Not told by, but printed numerous different times. So I'm guessing that everything just kept changing as you went along, what it was going to go for. Where's the separate account? We were told, and it was printed, and it was verbal. I'm sorry?
Okay, that is not the money that's being collected for the consumption of water. That's the $80 fee. The $80 fee is going into its own separate account and will only be used for one of those 5 projects.
And we report
nothing
on that
else.
monthly.
It will be used for nothing else. And we do report on that monthly, how it's being collected at the board meeting. There was a slide where I showed, here's how much we've got collected, and here it was spent last month on 2 projects, and I reported that as well. And I will continue to.
Okay, because from the property owner's point of view, it's not going by the numbers. It's just being collected and put into the fund. And based upon that, the water department was never, or the water bill was never intended to be the profit center, quote, for the facility. There's the difference between costs that have to be related to it and the difference between making profit. The $80 at this stage is part of a profit center. And there's no reason to have to collect it when you know you're going to need it in advance of needing it. Because if you're using it now, right now.
Well, I think one of the things, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're a half an hour over where we're supposed to be. And I'm trying to be respectful of your time. The last gentleman is the last person who can get up and speak. But if you've come to the board meetings, we've gone over that in detail.
Okay.
Every single step.
All right, then we'll leave it go.
To be fair to your point, we're trying to define these things. And there was a question by many people that one of the projects was not what they wanted, was not being put in the right place. There was just a list of issues. And so one of the gentlemen earlier than you wanted to know why they hadn't got all that information back to us. We sent our engineers back to us on that particular project, and we're probably going to come back with a different design or a different process. So all those things being said, every single one of those projects are having to be defined, having to be reported on, and all coming out of one account that is reported on separately at every step.
Okay. So the feeling that most property owners have that the money is being taken, the $80, that assessment was not done properly.
I understand that.
Okay, and so what's going to be done to remediate it, and then I'm done?
There's no remediation about it. The homeowners who decided that it was done improperly would have to go back and review the legal steps that we took to be able to do that. And if they disagree with that, that is entirely, and I mean this sincerely, not being sarcastic, that's their right. They have the right to say, I think you did it wrong, here's my attorney. And we've gone through a lot to try and make sure this is right, because none of us want us to do something that is illegal in any way. And people don't have to believe that. But I've done this for 20 years where my license is on the line. And believe it or not, people in my position in other states have to have a license issued by the state. And they watch everything we do, financially and otherwise. So if there's an issue with people thinking it's illegal, they'll have to come up with their attorney, because that's what we had to do. And we spent months doing it to be sure that this is the right thing and legally right to do.
Illegal is not something I'm making a comment about. I'm talking about the procedures. Procedures, there was a right way to do it. Notify everybody. Let everybody come to a vote on your tank, on your water assessment, all these things. All these people have the right to vote. Also, you're using the information, I'm hearing the information that you're losing money on this because we haven't built out, or we're in our build out. We're going to start losing money.
You're now confusing a bunch of things here. So I want to be sure
you're
that
right.
we stay on one.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good evening.
You bet. And by the way, you're welcome to come to my office anytime, and I'll happy to go through it all with you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jan Brown from Tanasi. I have one really quick thing. Can you just clarify on the, I know there was the exclusion that you referenced for 24 months. My concern is so many people that buy in the village, they age out or whatever, lose a spouse or something like that, and then they downsize. The exclusion that you have is only for 24 months. If they change...
No. You misunderstand, and I apologize.
After 24
it's
months,
after 24 months.
Okay, that's what I wanted the clarification on. Because the way
in
it was,
perpetuity after that.
Okay, that was the way it was written. One of the things I wanted to say is regarding reserves. I come from Florida, 23 years in Florida. There was a definite reason for that.
Yep.
So many of the condominium associations just put everything in a pot and everything in a pot. And if you remember, several years ago, the hotel, not the hotel, but the one condominium that fell. One of the reasons was because they didn't do the mandatory reserves, which they are by law mandatory. I served on the board where I lived. My husband did also. We know what it's like. But the specific reserves are like for maintenance, definitely for roofs, because everybody thinks, oh, it's a 20-year roof. Not in Florida, not with the hurricanes.
No.
If they last 10, you're lucky. So they started specifying pots. You have to have reserves for that. You have to have it for a roof. Air conditioning, have to have it. And then you can do whatever you want with the other stuff. You want to get new furniture for your pool. And we actually lived in a condominium, well, we had a house and a condominium on the water. And our president decided we needed new flooring in basically our little resort building, and he wanted to get new furniture. Didn't take care of the roofs, and everybody's roofs started to leak. So the mandatory roofs, there is a reason to do it, and it works. My other question was, and I know you were talking, I'm not to get back on all of this again. My concern is that after all the years that you've been working with the engineer, and now he's going back to the drawing board. Having been in legal for that amount of time, I know that every time they do another contract or they present something else, they also present you with another bill.
Correct.
How can you guys come up with, we need this, this, and this, and it needs to be by this date, and we're done?
So the part of the problem is that the reason we've sent them back is because it was felt that the community did not like the resolution they came up with, one way or the other. And the only benefit I can say to you is because they have saved money in other places thus far, we've not received an additional bill for this. Let's take a second look.
Okay, which would be nice to make that public. The other question that I had, I know you were talking about Cooper.
Yes.
We own a townhome in South Carolina. 10 years ago, just like you said, they filed a lawsuit against the developer. It took 10 years.
Yes.
We got 10 million. So don't discount it.
Oh, yeah, no,
Think
like I
about
said,
it.
I know it can be done.
It can be done, and you can win. And our association did. And this is the first year I've ever had an HOA fee go down. They gave back to the community, and they said for everybody that persevered through this whole thing, everybody's HOA bill went down. It doesn't sound like much, $20, but for everybody that's in that community, it was great.
Sure.
So like I said, don't
It can be done,
discount that
yes.
it can't be done if there's a way to attach Cooper to it.
Sure.
And the last thing that I want to ask, and my question is, everybody's, we are all concerned about the $80, in addition to everything else that's been added to it. And I'm one of the people that I am too. I had a budget, I made out a budget, said, yeah, I can live there. And then all of a sudden, now we're adding this, we're adding this, we're adding this. But yet, 1.3 million was paid by this HOA back to the government for a False Claims Act violation.
Actually, it was only paid back what the government gave us. It was not a penalty. Okay. And basically what happened is they gave it to us, we went round and round, and then they said, only kidding, pay it back. And so we did. And the good news was we put it in the bank and never spent it.
Okay, I wanted to find out about that. Thank you very much.
You bet. Sir.
Bob Thompson, Tanasi. Is there a time limit if the changes, the possible changes for the buy-in fee was put to a vote? Is there a time limit on when that vote would have to be completed?
So there is no time, to my understanding in the state of Tennessee, there is no time limit. More or less, if I went out and said, we want to take a vote on this and here's the language we want to change, you can keep collecting those signatures. So far, I've found no limit and perpetuity. It could take us 10 years and we could do it.
Okay. How do you go about saving money when a group in the village demands some very expensive whatever?
I'm sorry, say again?
How do you save money when some group in the village demands some expensive whatever?
Well, I think that that's why you put board members in the community. We are a republic of sorts, and when you vote for a board member to sit in that place, those are the kinds of things you're anticipating he will protect you from and evaluate, he or she.
The $80 fee now can be changed by a vote of the board?
Yes, of course.
And it could go up as high as they decide to go?
No, I'm sorry. It can be voted down, but there are limits on how this was set up, on what they can do and what they can't do. Okay. And the goal was never for it to be in perpetuity, ever. That was never a conversation at all. When we said 5 years, that was our wall that we were shooting for. And the only way we would have ever gone past that wall if these projects went on and on and on, or the costs changed.
Okay. This is for Scott. Were the features that are involved in Tanasi, were they ever broken down so that you had an explanation, well, if we do this, it's going to cost this much?
Yes.
It was?
Yes. All of the design work and all of the planning, we looked at all of that. Even before the contract was awarded, we went through a value engineering and said, oh, we need to change this or we need to change that. One of the big savings we made is we went from all wooden studs and a wooden construction, type 2 construction, to type 5, so that we were able to use all metal studs, which again makes it more fireproof. Yes. We still have a fire suppression system, but yes, we looked at all of the features, what can be left, changed floor coverings, changed other things in order to make it more cost effective.
Did you have to go back to the board to get that approved?
That was all done. That was all done prior to the guaranteed maximum price contract being let, and now any other changes that come in as long as we don't go beyond as long as we don't make additions beyond what was in the contract, we don't have to go back to the board.
I'm thinking of subtractions, not additions.
No, subtractions, no, we don't have to go back. We're keeping track of that, and we will get that credit at the end of the contract.
Okay, and then lastly, where do I volunteer to have our tank tested?
Beth, I think
Matt?
I've got a business card in my pocket on my jacket there. Give them a business card, send it to me. Just send me an email. My contact information is there, and left outside pocket, and we'll take care of that.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I hope your questions are short because the church has given us the high sign. You got to get out. We're starting a meeting in 6. So
I'm Bart Brody, Shoulders Shores Way. I got a couple questions. The $80 a month, I true understood that went to a separate account and is only going to be used if we do that $34 million
That's correct.
deal.
All of the
I'm
above.
good with that.
Yep.
I'm going to suggest that you have the next board meeting here because there's not enough room up there, and since motions and stuff can't be done here, you're going to have a crowd next time. In my personal opinion, the homeowners are having a trustworthy problem with you, Chet, and the board.
Sure.
I know I have one with you because questions are being asked, and you dodge all around them and don't answer them directly.
Okay.
So I do think there's a problem with this $80. If I'm not mistaken, I went by the office, and it might have been you the other day that told me y'all mark up the water 68%.
Yeah, she said that this evening.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of markup in a business. We have to have money to pay for things. But at those kind of interest rates, if we're not making a profit, we've got an internal problem, an internal spending.
Well, when you say profit, I need to qualify
That's gross
this.
profit. I understand that.
No, you're still missing my point. We're a private, not-for-profit organization.
I
and
get
so
that.
there is revenue up here
Yeah.
and expenses here
I've run
and
a
reserves
listen,
here,
listen.
but you're missing the final point.
What is
When
it?
we're all done with all those,
Yeah.
it has to equal 0.
Well, does that mean then you overpay for certain things just to eat up that money?
Of
Or can
course
you
not.
or can
If we
you not-
have extra, the money goes in reserves. I mean,
Correct, I'm
this
with
is,
you there. But
Yeah.
there's an internal problem if we're marking up 68%.
Mm-hmm.
I understand about business, what's profit, what's not, like an insurance company. If
Sure.
they make too much money, they got to send some dividends back, which that's not a bad idea too. There's something going on that at a 68% gross profit, this place isn't making money.
So I would suggest, well, we aren't supposed to be making money, number one, but number two, I would suggest that you take a look at all our financials, which are either online or if you come by, I'm happy to see that you get a copy, a full
Well,
copy,
I've come
not
by.
just the P&L, but a full copy.
I've come by your office twice because I wanted to volunteer. I've recently retired and I've got extensive knowledge in automotive parts, tires, and service.
Uh-huh.
I've come by your office twice and they've told me the door's closed. The door's closed. We don't go in.
If you came by my office last week and the week before, you're right, because I was
Correct.
out of town. The
Really?
gentleman
They
you
told-
do
wait a
need to
minute,
talk.
Day before yesterday, you were out of town.
Day before yesterday, Monday,
At
I
4
was in
o'clock,
meetings.
if I
Oh,
came
I was
right at
gone.
4.
I wasn't even in my office at that time. I
They
was in
told
another
me
meeting.
the door was closed. You were in a meeting.
Yeah. So
Again,
this
that goes
gentleman
back to
over
my
here,
first
Mr. Mike. I'm sorry, Matt. Matt Benoit is the one who runs our public works, and they are the largest users of tires and trucks and mechanical information. Also, our golf community is. Those are the guys you might want to knock on their door and talk to them, because if you come to me, I'm going to say, you ought to talk to them because they're the ones who purchase all that stuff.
Okay.
But I
did-
suggest, to your question, get a copy of the financials and dig through them. If you find something that's wrong.
I can read through numbers all day long. It doesn't mean,
But
figures.
if you read through the numbers and there's a problem, then you should be pointing that out. You should be
Okay.
jumping on that and asking questions.
I will take you up on that. I do think the next meeting, board meeting, needs to be here, though. There's not enough
Unfortunately,
room
the church will not allow us to do that, but go
All right,
ahead.
next.
Hi, my name's Steve Cossey. I'm relatively new to the village, about a year. I came in here kind of neutral about it. I spent the last 30 years in the desert Southwest where water is really a problem.
Right.
We're surrounded by millions of acre feet of water, And my water bill here is 3 times what it was out there.
Sure.
And so it was interesting to hear, and I've been trying to track this down, and I've been trying to be neutral, but when I heard you're actually marking up the water, right, for subsidizing.
This is the CFO, if you're wondering. This is Judy.
We still do not make enough profit on the bottom line to cover the capital projects that we're doing that pertain to infrastructure, which is why we're having to do the $80 fee as well. So those projects alone, not even counting trucks or anything else that would be necessary for water and sewer, just those 5 projects, the cost is estimated at 39, and we're collecting 37, we're collecting 29 with the fee. So the rest of that has to be covered from reserves. The profit from water and sewer goes into reserves, so it's part of that money. It's all.
But my point is still correct. That we're subsidizing these other activities.
Yes.
With the revenue from water. Water is a human necessity. I mean, we can't argue that.
Absolutely.
What my suggestion is, and my point is, I understand the need to upgrade infrastructure and maintain all that stuff. Maybe the board and everybody else should look at, okay, so if we took that revenue stream away from the golf and the boat, and I use all those things. I use them all. But
Sure.
if we took that revenue stream out of the water bill and did an assessment on what would it actually cost the residents to support the golf and everything outside of using the water as a revenue stream. I mean, and maybe because there's a lot of consternation on next door and everything about the water bills and all that
Sure,
stuff.
I can understand
And when
why.
you're using it as a revenue stream, it kind of hides those actual costs. And I think
So-
you could generate a lot of trust by going through and figuring out what all those things would actually cost the residents if we weren't using the water as a revenue stream.
So we actually can do that, and that's because we track what we pay in what's the word I'm looking for? Not assessments, but
Right.
well, you have user fees, but I think I can say that none of our amenities pay for themselves. So
Right.
we
So-
can tell you what we're subsidizing those amenities and give you a number that says,
Well, I think you could go a long way to generating a lot of trust with the residents if you did that. And say,
Okay.
you come forward and say, okay, yes, we understand we're creating a revenue stream here. This is how it's being used.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I think if you did that, you might be able to turn down the temperature a little bit and get a different conversation than the one you're having now.
Sure, and I think that it's real easy. It's in all the financials of how we pay for that, and just let people know. If you want golf at this fee, and we're going to have to close, guys. I'm going to get thrown out by the church.
But I think that would be an honest conversation.
Sure.
And I think
Understood.
you could generate trust that way by saying, okay, yeah, your water bill's high, but
Here's where it's going. Thanks the few that stayed. I appreciate it.